Okay, today I'll be ranking the top 10 NFL receiving core. So for my receiving core, I'm going to have the top 3 wide receivers on the team, the top running back, and the top tight end. So number 10, I'm going to have the Los Angeles Rams. I can definitely see the Rams being put anywhere from like 10 to 15, depending on how much you see Puka Nacua and Cooper Cup. Puka Nacua, I think, is going to be a great wide receiver for the next 10 years or so, and I buy him very highly. On my top 10 NFL wide receiver list, I think I had Puka number 7 or something. Cooper Cup varies on how you could see Cooper Cup. Some say he's washed, but I think he can still bounce back to be like a somewhat of a 1,000 yard receiver. Tutu Atwell did well while Cup was injured, and I think he's a good wide receiver 3. Kyron is nothing special as a receiving back. You can see his stats under there: 32 receptions, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nothing super impressive, but not bad either. And Tyler Higbee has been himself the same tight end for like years now, always getting around 500 yards. So to me, I think the Rams pretty well rounded. Their trio of wide receiver is good. Um, is good. Nothing great, but I think it's good enough for the 10th spot. And number 9, I'm gonna have a shocker surprise Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals have probably one of the top duos in the NFL with Jamar Chase and Higgins. But Higgins was injured last year, so that kind of lowers the rating. And Jamar Chase is one of the top 10, maybe top 5 receivers. He did have 1,200 yards, very good. But other than that, they have a rookie in Burton. Zach Moss is not really a receiving back. He's nothing really special. And Mike Gesicki, he can be a very good receiving tight end, but the last 2 years he has been really bad. He has like around 500 yards the last 2 years. Um, so I think their duo is definitely top 5 wide receiver duo, but everything else, their wide receiver 3, their running back, tight end, really haven't put up great stats or are not really like receiving specialists. So those kind of tanked the Cincinnati Bengals, so I have them at number 9. And number 8, I'm gonna have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, definitely one of the top duos. Definitely not the best duo. Mike Evans, very very good receiver, but nothing compared to like Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson. Chris Godwin, very good wide receiver too. Trey Palmer is pretty much your typical wide receiver 3. Have around 400 yards, makes an occasional big play, but really, I think what pulls them into number 8 is Rashard White. I was really surprised that White had over 500 yards. He had 64 reception, 549 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think he was second. Might have been. I'm not sure about this. So I'm gonna fact check. I think he was second in running back receiving yards, or yeah. And Kate Otten, similar, pretty typical tight end, around 500 yards. So Buccaneers, um, really pretty much what I expect from an NFL team, or 2 very good top wide receivers, a solid wide receiver 3. Their running back is really good at wide receiver. Unfortunately, their top duo just isn't as good as compared to some of the other players on top of this list. The number 7, I'm gonna have the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson, probably arguably the top wide receiver in the NFL. Jordan Addison, very very good rookie season, had 10 receiving touchdowns. Brandon Powell's your typical wide receiver 3, not much to say. Aaron Jones, even though he didn't put up the most best stats last year, he's proven that he is like a dual threat back. He's very good in the receiving game for the running back. And Hawkinson, probably definitely a top 5 tight end in my list. Vikings duo, very good. Wide receiver 3 is below average compared to other teams on this list. Aaron Jones is a good receiving back. Well, what keeps them up high is T.J. Hawkinson, one of the top tight ends. So Hawkinson makes the Vikings above the other teams like the Bucks or the Bengals. And number 6, I'm gonna have the Seattle Seahawks, probably the most well-rounded of the teams. They have a great trio: DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith-Njigba had a very good rookie season. Kenneth Walker, similarly, not really anything special, not exactly known for his receiving, but he is capable. And Fant, I'm pretty high on Fant, but I gotta admit, he has not statistically put up great stats. His last 2 years at Seattle, he's only put up about 900 yards. Nothing compared to his like 1,500 yards in Denver. Might be because he's playing behind Will Dissly, but he just hasn't been as good as he's been with Denver. And another reason, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, probably not the probably if not like the worst duo on this list. DK is still very good, but I think last year Lockett started to show his age a little bit. And Metcalf, ever since his 1,300 yard season, he hasn't really come close to that. But still very good, very well rounded, good receivers all around. And then number 5, I'm gonna have the Philadelphia Eagles, another team with a very strong duo. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith probably makes one of the top duos. AJ Brown's continues to have close to 1,500 yards. Devontae Smith being a wide receiver 2, having close to 1,000. Devontae Parker, not the best wide receiver 3. I mean, he's not bad. He's still solid. He still had close to 400 yards, but he's getting old. He just has very little upside for me. And he's really only had one good season in his career. Saquon, probably one of the better, not the best, but one of the better receiving backs. But he really hasn't come close to that 700 yards he has as a rookie. But since then, he's had close to 300. And I really like Goddard as well. Another team that's very well rounded outside of their wide receiver 3. Goddard can have close to 700 yards. But at number 4, I'm going to have the Miami Dolphins. Very, very similar to the Philadelphia Eagles. Very strong top duo. Tyreek Hill, 1,800 yards for like 2 seasons in a row. Jalen Waddle, he had a bit of a downer last year, but he still reached 1,000 yards. Odell Beckham, I feel like he's better than Devontae Parker, and he did have 500 yards last year, which is pretty not bad for a wide receiver 3/2 on the Ravens. Mostert, not really a receiving back at all. He only had 175 receptions. I'm not sure if I should have included Achane because he did have more receptions and receiving yards, but I am picking only their top duo, their top running back. So Mostert, not really a receiving threat. Jonnu Smith, though, I'm surprised people hate him as much. He gets as much hate as he does. Last year, he had over 580 yards, which is really good for a tight end. In his career, other than really his first couple of years in the year with the Patriots, he has actually been pretty solid. So Dolphins, because of their strong duo, I think they're number 4. And number 3, I'm gonna have the Chicago Bears. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, another team with a very, very good duo. DJ Moore last year, very good season, even with Justin Fields, 1,364 yards. Keenan Allen last year, I'm surprised, in like 12 or 13 games, he had like 1,200 yards, showing that really he hasn't lost a step. Rome Odunze is a rookie, but he is highly touted, and he's probably better than those other solid wide receiver 3s, hopefully. DeAndre Swift's above average receiving back, a good receiving back, and then Cole Kmet, I think he's really started to break out the last couple of years. He's finding his zone. He's starting to get better. I kind of snubbed him from my top 10 tight end list, but Cole Kmet definitely deserves to be there. Chicago Bears, just as well rounded, probably like the Seahawks, but with a better duo. Okay, then number 2, I'm gonna have the San Francisco 49ers. Unlike other teams, the Niners actually have a very, very strong receiving back and a tight end. The wide receiver duo of Ayuk and Samuel isn't bad, but it's nothing compared to Tyreek and Waddle or like Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, but they're not bad. Ayuk broke out last season with 1,300 yards. Samuel really hasn't been able to replicate his 13-yard season a couple years ago, but not bad either. He did have 900 receiving yards. Jawan Jennings, I know he does a lot of blocking. He's like number 5 in the receiving game for the Niners. So his stats doesn't look the best, but he's pretty solid as a wide receiver 3, especially in blocking. But really, why the Niners are number 2 is because of their running back and tight end. Christian McCaffrey, probably the best receiving back in the NFL. He had over 550 yards, 7 receiving touchdowns. And Kittle last year, one of the top tight ends that was the only tight end last year to finish with over 1,000 yards. The Niners, different than other teams, has a really strong, probably the best receiving back and one of the best tight ends. And number 2, I'm going to have the Houston Texans. You knew we were coming. Texans have a lethal wide receiver 3. Depending on who you put as wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, but Texans have the best wide receiver 2, whether it's Stephon Diggs or Nico Collins. Stephon Diggs, even though he did slow down the second half of the season, he still finished just shy of 1,200 yards. Nico Collins just shy of 1,300 yards. And Tank Dell, in how many games did he play? Less than 10 games. He finished with 700 yards. That's really impressive, and probably the best wide receiver 3 in the NFL, and he'll just get better and better. Joe Mixon, always been an very above average receiving back, and very good at the check down. He was used a lot as a check down in the Cincinnati with 52 receptions. And similarly, Schultz is a good tight end as well, always getting 600 around 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. Very consistent. So Texans, they're just all around. They have above average receivers at every single position. And for everybody that skips the video, here you have the top 10 receiving corps and 2 honorable mentions being Tennessee Titans and Dallas Cowboys. So there you have it, the top 10 NFL receiving corps.